my first thoughts when I got diagnosed was, I have to be there for them. I have to be at their weddings and have grandchildren. And, I felt like all of that was being robbed from me.
Welcome to Believe in Progress, the American Association for Cancer Research Foundation podcast. Join us and be inspired by the incredible stories of those who have faced cancer with strength and resilience, and the medical professionals who are working tirelessly to find new treatments and ultimately a cure. Believe in Progress isn't just about the science of cancer. It's about the human side of this disease. Together, we can make progress in the fight against cancer and bring hope to those who need it most. Welcome to the Believe in Progress podcast, brought to you by the American Association for Cancer Research. I'm your host, Mitch Stoller, Chief Philanthropic Officer at the AACR. Today, we have an inspiring episode featuring Meryl Uranga, a 7-year kidney cancer survivor and dedicated advocate. Meryl has transformed her personal journey into a powerful mission to accelerate cures for kidney cancer through her work with KidneyCAN. Join us as we delve into Meryl's incredible story, her advocacy work, and the impact she is making in the cancer community. Meryl, such a great honor to have you here today. Welcome to Believe in Progress.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's awesome to have you here today. I think you have a radio background, and love to hear about that.
I do. I was a student out in Provo, Utah at Brigham Young University in the early 80s, and I very happenstancely ran into someone who was a program director that mentored me into the radio business. And I spent the entire decade of the 80s being a DJ and a music director and program director, and it ended up being a very robust career for me, at least for those 10 years. And then I moved on when I started my family and stuff, but it was a blast and a big part of my story and who I am now.
What was the radio? What was the genre that you were DJing?
We were top 40 radio, which was like a dream for me. I think I never believed that they paid me to do it because I was a big music fan, and it was just incredible, like an experience that in my single years and my 20s and stuff, I was just rocking and rolling and having so much fun, and it really gave me a tremendous foundation for my life.
That's neat. You went to BYU?
I did.
So I had the good fortune many years ago to visit BYU, and I was at Orem, right? It's Orem, Utah. It was the most spectacular. I mean, I'm an East Coast guy, and I had this opportunity to go there. And then, when you approach the university and see the mountains in the background, spectacular, just spectacular.
Yeah. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
What prompted you to go to BYU?
Born and raised in Philadelphia, but I always had kind of an itch to get out. And I had actually applied and gotten accepted to Penn State, and I was going to go to Penn State and was just all settled in to do that. And I just decided, my best friend was out in Utah she had started a year before me. And I just said, I'm going. And I applied and I went. I got in a little bit late, like a half semester, and didn't look back. It kind of freaked my family out and everything.
I'm sure it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'm not a Mormon, so there's that, but it was a great experience. Had so much fun out there. And like you said, it's just the most spectacular place to live in terms of the aesthetic of being in the mountains. And it's just gorgeous.
I loved it. I mean, it was just so spectacular. I've also had the good fortune to be in Salt Lake a couple times and had the pleasure to meet the Huntsmans and been to the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And, just Salt Lake's a really very interesting, very interesting place. It was a pretty cool place to go.
It's a little culturally unusual for sure, but it's a beautiful place. Had a blast living there.
So how'd you get from radio to the telecom world?
I started a family, and once that became a priority for me, radio sort of faded away. Radio is fun, but it's a very insecure, transient kind of existence. And I was expecting my first child, and my husband and I at the time just decided we're going to move, and we moved to Atlanta. And that's been 35 years this month. And now Atlanta's home for sure. I've lived here longer than even Philadelphia, where I grew up, and like way longer. And it was just one of those things. And once I got my feet grounded after having my first child and everything, I started on a new career path and ended up in the telecom world, where I stayed until retirement a few years ago.
What were you, like sales or?
I started in sales back in the day, MCI, friends and family and all that. Remember when we used to have to pay for long distance?
I remember that. Yes.
That's what I did. And eventually that company, there was a lot of drama. It was taken over by WorldCom, and there was a big scandal. And then I kind of survived through all that. And then we became Verizon in 2006. And that was the company that I retired with. And so I was there for quite a while, since the early 90s.
Can we chat a little bit about your metastatic kidney cancer and your initial diagnosis?
I was feeling terrible, and I knew something was wrong. So I went to the ER, and I suspected appendicitis, and it was acute appendicitis, and I had to have an appendectomy immediately. But while they were scanning me in the ER, just a total incidental finding, because I had no idea prior to the appendicitis that anything was wrong. I didn't have any symptoms or even a clue that I had a pretty big tumor on my left kidney. So it was a very jarring time. It was just came out of nowhere, and I had to recover very quickly from the appendectomy, and then kind of just went right into the diagnosis and discovery of what was going on with my kidney cancer. And it turned out that it was metastatic. It was in my lungs, and before I had lung surgery to remove what was there, they were going to treat it locally. I had a nephrectomy, and they removed my kidney, and then they were going to remove a lobe of my lung. And while being tested and scanned for that procedure, they discovered I also had about a 2.5 centimeter lesion in my brain. So I had to have that treated as well. And this was just bam, bam, bam. Between April and July, I had a lobectomy, a nephrectomy, gamma knife, radiation to the brain, and of course the appendectomy. So that's how it all came about. Very, very surprising, and kind of hard to grasp for quite a while.
You must have had a pretty good support system, I hope, anyway, during that period of time.
I'll tell you what, it's like a blur those first months. If I had anything to do over again, I would have waited a little bit to get my wits about me and made decisions a little slower than I did. And that's what I talk to people a lot nowadays about. Just, this thing has been there for a while. Just because you know about it now, you don't have to jump into treatment, and just be very careful and cautious about your next steps, and learn a lot before you take them.
When you are counseling people or talking to people, or you find that they want to have surgery right away, or they want to get it taken care of, could you just elaborate on that a little bit more? I think the audience would like to understand that.
Yeah, I think that our just human immediate knee-jerk reaction is get it out. Just get it out, take care of it. Let me get this behind me. Let me get on the road to recovery. And I know I felt that way, and I know a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years do. And I just, again, from my own experience, wishing that I had done this, I will advise people to just take your time, do your research. First, get yourself mentally stabilized, because it's a very difficult emotional and mental experience at first. And then do some research. In my case, it took me a while. I had already had these procedures done, and I realized I wasn't in the right place. For example, I needed to be in an academic center, not a community center. Kidney cancer is very specialized. It's not a very common cancer. And so general oncologists are not super experienced with it, not super up to date on treatments and trials and things that are critically important in the treatment space. So it's important to step back and see, where am I? Where am I willing to go? What's what's around me or what matters most. Do I have the ability to travel or get a second opinion or whatever? These are all things that really should be done ahead of treatment decisions. And in my case, I jumped right into it. Then once I got stabilized, I was able to dig in and find out, whoa, I'm not in the right place. So I made that change. And really, I'm 100% convinced it changed the course of my disease and my life by doing that.
So, how did you educate yourself? I mean, as you said, you boom, 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 boom. You had a lot going on in the beginning. How did you go about educating yourself, and how would you advise people to educate themselves? When they're having these problems.
Yeah. I got a lot of advice off right out of the gate from like the urologists that I saw in the hospital. I didn't know these people at all, but they were the specialists, they were the professionals, so I was listening to them. But then I got online after initially being told by family and friends, don't get online, the statistics are terrible, don't Google this stuff. But I knew I had to, and so I actually found a support forum online called Smart Patients, and I can't speak highly enough about them. The people that I met on Smart Patients are friends to this day and are, again, I credit for, without trying to sound dramatic, but saving my life, because I realized what was going on at that point. And so I dug in. There was a lot of information that I was able to pull up. And this is what I would tell people today is to, look at the specialists that are out there that are near you. And the thing with kidney cancer is that because it's not very common, that these general oncologists don't see it very often. Like in my case, I was seeing a general oncologist at first, and I started to get suspicious when he would say things like, he kept talking about one particular patient and how they did. And then I realized that was the only patient that he could remember having kidney cancer. And that really set me off on a journey.
Smart Patients, that's a support group for all cancers, not just specific to kidney cancer, right?
It is all for all cancers. And it's, the name indicates, it's generally like-minded people that are not passive in their treatment, that want to be active, that want to be in, decision-making with their care teams. And so it's a mentality. The people that want to know, they want to study the data and study at what's going on out there in the research world. And those are the things that really got things moving for me.
As you know, majority of people are treated in community centers, community cancer centers. With specifically to kidney cancer, isn't that a challenge for some people to be able to get to a comprehensive cancer center or an academic center?
It definitely could be. Onset of telehealth through the pandemic and everything has changed the flavor of that so much, because people who don't have the resources or the ability to travel out of like rural areas or whatever have access now to like a big city hospital or a university hospital. And I want to reiterate the fact that because kidney cancer is not super common, that's why I point this out as a priority, because there are specialists in these centers that's all they deal with is these types of cancers. And so they're just way more informed and up to date on what you will need as treatment going forward.
So, as a resource for our audience, if somebody out there is in a rural community, you're advocating telehealth at least to get started with that type of counsel, and then if you need to physically go, that would be the route to take.
Right, and a lot of times they'll work in conjunction with a community center to they can do your scans and infusions and blood work and things like that locally, but you have that expert opinion out there guiding decisions that are so critical.
Talk to me about KidneyCAN, and I'd love to hear more about that.
So as a result of being involved in Smart Patients, I was able to, when I was posting on Smart Patients when I was looking to make that change. And I met someone on there who has become a good dear friend of mine over the years. And she was already working with KidneyCAN in the advocacy world. And she helped me get into our local academic center here and just kind of guided me a little bit. She was about 6 months ahead of me in the whole process, and had a better idea. And so I started to get involved with KidneyCAN that way, just the exposure. And then once I had been going through some pretty heavy treatment and stuff like that, but once it eased up for me, then I said I wanted to get involved. And I didn't really know that much about the organization, but I liked the idea of getting involved with advocacy, because once I learned that, the key for a potential cure, which KidneyCAN's, motto is mission statement, I should say, is accelerating cures. So that really appealed to me as a stage 4 kidney cancer patient. It's not curative. You're told right off the bat it's not curative. That it can be treated. It can be treated long term, and certainly is frequently. But I really loved the idea of getting involved, and so I did. And I must say my radio background has come in very handy in this role, because it's a lot of talking to people. It's a lot of media stuff, and it's a lot of the skills that I developed over the years in that profession have done a lot for me in my KidneyCAN work. And I love it. I love being able to do that. And so I was able to go. I think the first time I went was 2019. We went to Capitol Hill and actually did in-person, door-to-door meetings, advocating for kidney cancer research. And of course, we all know what happened right after 2019. So everything shut down, and we went to a virtual situation where we still are. We're back to doing some in-person advocacy, but we've actually really expanded and been able to expand by utilizing online meetings as well, that have been very effective.
As a liaison, I think your title is Community Liaison Patient Advocacy. I guess you're focused on the Southeast, in the Southeast team, or are you nationwide?
Kind of whatever's needed. I just I help out a lot. Besides the advocacy work that I do, I help out with, finding people for certain things. Sometimes there are organizations like your own that need people for certain events or appearances or something that they can, where we can go out to our patient base that we know of that may be interested in helping out. And I do a lot of that, as well as the advocacy work.
I learned that you were on the selection committee for the innovation grants that KidneyCAN is funded at AACR. So thank you very much for that.
It's my pleasure to do it. It's very humbling to be behind the scenes and see what goes on with work that's done on our behalf. And it's just an amazing process and makes me very hopeful.
We had our first grantee summit about a month ago now, and Brian came to that meeting, and I think there were some young investigators that were presenting on their work. You guys have also supported our Scholar in Training Awards, which is really an amazing. It's amazing when I go to the annual meeting, and there's so many young, bright scientists that are able to come to the annual meeting because organizations like KidneyCAN have supported supported their travel and supported their ability to get to the annual meeting. It's not an understatement. That is critically important to their futures and how they move forward. So,
and that's where it's at. I mean, and then we have the established professional specialists that are mentoring them, and that's where hope lies for me, for my family, for everyone like me, that we can continue kicking the can down the road, as I like to say, to reveal new treatments and new options and possibly a cure. That's the dream.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier. You just mentioned family. Tell me about how important family has been. Obviously, family is important to all of us in our lives. Could you chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's everything. My older kids at the time, back in 2017 when this happened, really stepped up to be there for me, not just in a emotional way, which everybody was there for me, but they actually helped me out. I was on my own, single at the time, and I had these children that were just able, even with their busy lives, being in college and doing different things, that they were able to help me out and be there for me, which was amazing. And then, of course, my first thoughts when I got diagnosed was I have to be there for them. I have to be at their weddings and have grandchildren. And, I felt like all of that was being robbed from me. And so it was a very difficult time. But I'm happy to say that 3 of the 4 that I have are married now, and I've been privy to being part of their lives all these years. And I've got 3 grandchildren and 1 any day now coming. And
exciting.
Yeah, I am so thankful. There's not a day or even an hour of the day that goes by that I'm not grateful for that, because it's everything. And that's why I do what I do.
It's really great. Interesting that you were into legislative advocacy now. What are your priorities? What are you guys really focused on? And do you work with state legislatures as well, or just pretty much focus on the federal government?
Yeah, we work at the local level. We have 2 large events per year, and we have hundreds of advocates that are working across the country in all of the different areas. And we have constituents that get on these calls and speak to their local legislation, state legislation. We speak to senators and representatives and their staff. And we have very specific asks that we go in with every time that we have one of these events, that include, first and foremost, research dollars that is funded through the DoD. The Kidney Cancer Research Program is part of the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, and that is funded through the DoD. So we're dealing, and there's a huge military impact in kidney cancer too. And I should mention that, because that makes—
Why is that?
Exposure to chemicals. There's been a lot of that being uncovered very recently.
So you're saying there's a lot of environmental issues around kidney cancer?
Yes, it's been proven that the chemical and toxic exposures in some military situations have been a causative reason for kidney cancer. And so it's qualified for relief under that umbrella. And like I said, the KCRP is funded through the Department of Defense in our government. And so when we go in with our asks, it's specific dollars that we are requesting for research for the fiscal year. And we usually have additional— there's also NIH and other organizations that we request funding be supported for in terms of medical care. And then we're also very aggressively interested in continuing with telemedicine initiatives, as we talked about earlier. It really benefits our community so much, and that stuff's all kind of up in the air right now with Congress. And so we've added that to our asks as well. And just generally to continue, medical research support. And like I said, I do now in terms of advocacy myself, I do work mainly in the Southeast as a team lead and meet with people in generally, of course, Georgia, and then Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, stuff like that.
How many other people like you are there with KidneyCAN around the country?
In the hundreds.
Wow.
That we work. Yeah, it's a big event.
I knew Atlanta citizen. His name was Hamilton Jordan. Do you know that name?
I do know that name.
He was the former chief of staff for Jimmy Carter.
That's right.
I got to know Hamilton many years ago. He was exposed to Agent Orange and many other things when he was in the Vietnam War. And he was, unfortunately, lots of different cancers. I'm not 100% sure if he had kidney cancer or not. But he was an amazing guy who was a great advocate. And just your comment to me about environmental factors and things like that. Do you find it challenging at all to balance your advocacy work with your personal life? And do they mix quite a lot together?
It's not really much of a challenge. We do these events a couple times a year. So there's a big buildup for it and some time invested when we're actually having the meetings and everything. But no, it's good. I've been fortunate that I was able to retire from my career a few years ago, and so it keeps me busy. It's my purpose, which we all need, even when we're battling stage 4 cancer. It's tremendous to have this kind of purpose, and I feel super fortunate that I've been able to be as involved as I am with KidneyCAN, because the work they're doing means everything to me and to our whole community. And so I am doing sometimes we do mini advocacy events, and I'm going to be doing one of those in December. We're actually in person for the first time since 2019 up in DC. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
We do a big event every year called the Rally for Medical Research. I don't know if you're familiar with that event or not. I think Brian has been to that event a couple times, but if you ever get the opportunity, maybe next year, it's a great event because it's not specific to oncology. It's all life sciences, and it's a great forum, a great way to educate many of the leaders, on Capitol Hill. It's been a phenomenal activity. So if you ever get that opportunity, you should take advantage of it and go up on the Hill. How important was it for you to be your own advocate when you were first diagnosed with cancer? Or was that an issue for you?
Oh, 100% an issue. Again, caveating the fact that the first few months I was like a deer in the headlights, which is very out of character for me. And that's sort of the point that I'm leading to, is that I have always, prior to cancer, been someone who for example, I had pregnancy complications. I had high risk pregnancies when I was having my family. And so even then, prior to the internet and everything, I would dig in and figure out what I needed to do. And so it's just sort of my personality to be involved. I want to be involved in decision making. I don't want to be a passive patient. And so it was extremely important to me to find a team that I could work with on that level. And that has worked out really well for me with my situation that I've been in, and the team that I have. And I like it. I like that they respect my opinion, and I respect theirs tremendously, and we work together because there's a lot of, when you're on a chronic kidney cancer treatment, there's a lot of side effects, and there's a lot of life altering things that you have to deal with on a daily basis. And in order to maintain your quality of life, there's got to be working back and forth with people. And, you're the only one who's living with it and knowing what's going on. So it's super important to communicate and work as a team.
Yeah, my dad had spinal stenosis, and then he actually had kidney failure. And I just remember how tough it was for my dad to deal with, just dialysis and pain in the back. And I can only imagine how potentially traumatic kidney cancer could be for somebody.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, obviously the trade-off is worth it, but there's a lot to manage on that when you're dealing with what is essentially a chronic illness. There's many very uplifting long-term survivor stories, and there's many that are not, that are just as inspiring, of people that didn't survive, but they lived their lives beautifully until the end, and they made the most of the time that they had with their families. And so, yes, there's inspiration everywhere in the community, because we're all out there just trying to do what everybody wants to do, which is see our kids grow and see our grandkids grow and make memories, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Can't thank you enough for your time, but also what you do for KidneyCAN, what you do for cancer patients, cancer survivors, not just with kidney cancer, but just in cancer in general. I think the audience is going to love this episode, and we so appreciate the relationship that we have with KidneyCAN. So, Meryl, thank you so much.
Very honored to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl, for sharing your incredible journey and the impactful work you are doing with KidneyCAN. Your story is a testament to the power of advocacy and the importance of community support in the fight against cancer. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Believe in Progress podcast. If you want to learn more about Meryl's advocacy efforts in kidney cancer and research, please visit KidneyCAN.org. That's KidneyCAN.org. Remember to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and share this podcast with friends and family to spread hope and awareness. Your support is crucial in the fight against cancer. Please consider making a donation to the American Association for Cancer Research at AACR.org. Every contribution helps advance life-saving cancer research. This podcast is produced by CollegeCast LLC. And remember, cancer research saves lives.